Hello and welcome to the David Icke Videocast. Well, it's been encouraging in the last few years particularly to see more and more people realise that there is a political class that dominates all political parties. A class that means it doesn't matter whether they represent this party of the left or this party of the right or this party of the centre. They all basically align with the same ongoing agenda. Therefore, as they say in America, well, awake people say in America, it doesn't matter who you vote for because the government still gets in. In other words, the same mentality, the political class, which doesn't represent the people at all. It represents the political class, and that in the shadows that drives and controls the political class. And so that's been really encouraging, that more and more people have realized that there is a hoax being perpetuated on the population of the world called political choice. There is none, ultimately, because of this political class. And that is encouraging, but we still have this belief in the political system when it's really just a hoax to give you the illusion of choice so that every few years you hand over power to another aspect of the political class called some political party or other. And what is still disappointing is that every now and again, in fact, virtually every election these days, someone comes along claiming not to be part of that political class, to be different, to be anti-system, just stand up for the people. And so we had the left in America fall for the hoax that was Barack Obama. Barack Obama appeared on the scene, I'm Mr. Change, I'm different, I stand for the people, man of the people, they're all men of the people. And of course, what happened through his 2 terms in office is that the same agenda unfolded. More people with brown faces in the Middle East were bombed to smithereens. And he was the first black president who did, what did he do for black people? Nothing, basically. And the same political class was in power because he was just a puppet of that class. He was an expression of it, actually, out of Chicago. And then we've had the right in America that has been talking for a long time, rightly, about the fact that America, as with so many other countries, most of them, is a one-party state where it doesn't matter if you vote Democrat or Republican, the same agenda goes on. But then they fell for it. And chunks of the alternative media in America fell for it when along came Donald Trump. Donald Trump, oh no, he's not the same. He's not from the political class. He's a maverick. What did they say? What did he say? Oh, I'm going to drain the swamp in Washington. Donald Trump wants to drain the swamp when he's been swimming in it all his life. Where's he going to do his front crawl? And look what's happened. We have had now, I said on the day he was elected in an internet video, the people that supported Trump and thought he was going to be not of the political class are going to be deeply disappointed with what's about to follow. And so many have been, because of course he's not doing what he said he would do, and he's going back on one thing after another. So what I'm saying is that these people do not come to power without the backing of the forces that dictate who comes to power. Now, I'm not saying that every single one of them is manipulating people on purpose. Some of them might be actually partly genuine in what they say they want to do. But in the end, even them, even they, are not in control of what happens. And so they go back on all that they said they would do. Which brings me to Jeremy Corbyn and the British Labour Party, which supposed to represent the working class, the urban working class overwhelmingly, the people who are not doing well and have long been abused by the system and treated as just cattle and fodder. And Jeremy Corbyn is saying all the right things, but of course, how easy is that? Telling people what they want to hear. It's very different when you are given the opportunity not just to say what people want to hear, but actually to do it. And again, when the Corbyn control centre of the British Labour Party has been given the chance to stand up for those they're supposed to represent, they've not. And we saw this very clearly this very week when Jeremy Corbyn, who has been, in terms of what he said, vehemently anti-European Union throughout his political career, made a speech about Labour policy, which is proposing, in effect, to massively dilute the wishes of the people, overwhelmingly the urban people that are natural voters for the Labour Party, and which the Labour Party was actually created in the late 19th century to represent. Their wishes in the Brexit referendum to leave the EU are now not being represented by Jeremy Corbyn, man of the people who believes in democracy. He is lining up with socialists, men of the people like Tony bloody Blair, like the Conservative former Prime Minister, disaster, like Blair, John Major. He's lining up with the representatives of the big corporations and the banks and the City of London, all of which do not want Britain to leave the EU, because the EU is fundamental to a much bigger agenda for the centralisation of human control. Here we have Jeremy Corbyn diluting, at best diluting, the desires of the majority of voters in the referendum to leave the EU and its control by unelected bureaucrats in Brussels. Where is Corbyn? Talking up the European Union. And we've seen this before. There was a leader of the Labour Party called Neil Kinnock. Neil Kinnock, Welsh firebrand, man of the people. Also known quite rightly as the Welsh windbag. Not that he was Welsh, but he was a windbag. But he was Welsh, and he was a windbag. And so, what did he do? This man was anti-EU. We must come out of the EU. EU is against the interests of etc., etc. Well, he became a bureaucrat commissioner for the EU. His wife became a member of the European Parliament, and together they made a frickin' fortune out of the EU, which continues with pensions today. What does he do now? He wants to stop Brexit, basically. So he, who is now on the right of the Labour Party, right in the Blair camp, is now standing on the same ground in terms of the EU as Jeremy Corbyn. Man of the people, he's not from the political class, he represents us. No, he doesn't. I mean, it is kind of incredible the number of these hard left socialist men of the people actually don't come from that background at all. I mean, Jeremy Corbyn was brought up in a farmhouse, a 17th century farmhouse, Yew Tree Manor. Again and again you'll see this, that the representatives of the people don't come from that background. And the title of this videocast is Don't Be a Gimme Vote. And what do I mean by that? Well, the urban natural supporters of the Labour Party, the urban working class, have been finding out for a long time what it means to be a gimme vote, as I call it. A gimme vote is when a political party looks at a group of people and says, well, if they don't vote for us, who are they going to vote for? And they make this judgment accurately over the years about the urban working class. The Labour Party has made this judgment, or the people that control it, that, well, we don't have to do what they want. We don't have to keep them happy. Because when it comes to an election, who else are they going to vote for? They're not going to vote for the Conservative Party, which has this the long reputation, and quite rightly, for representing the interests of the rich and the powerful. The so-called Liberal Democrats, the so-called middle ground, next to bloody useless. I mean, they're not going to attract massive amounts of votes from the urban working class, been abused and mistreated way back into Victorian times and beyond. So we don't have to keep them happy. They're a gimme vote. They're a gimme. They're going to vote for us. So what we've got to do is we've got to attract votes from those who wouldn't naturally, as a gimme, vote for us. So the policies and the rhetoric and the representation of the Labour Party in this case is not for the gimme vote, the urban working class, overwhelmingly the white urban working class, as it turns out, but the metropolitan middle class in London, the rich, heart on the sleeve liberals who aren't liberal at all, really. All that kind of people. That's who we've got to appeal to. We've got to appeal to business as well. We've got to appeal to all these people that run the businesses and run the system. And so that's where we're going to direct our focus, and not on the people the party was created to represent. This is what has happened again and again and again. Now, this has disenfranchised the urban working class in Britain. It's happened in America as well and elsewhere. But then along came the Brexit vote. And here was an opportunity for that urban working class to make a statement. They weren't voting for a political party which would say, yeah, we'll do what you want, and then not do it. It was a in, out, no political party involved in the vote choice. So at last, the urban working class that has been massively affected in a negative way by control from Brussels and all that goes with it, including mass immigration that's changed the face of so many British working class areas and pushed down wages to the benefit of the 1%, which the Labour Party was supposed to challenge, right? So here was an opportunity in the Brexit vote for this urban working class that's been ignored and neglected by the Labour Party all these years, taken for granted, to have a say. And they did. And they voted out of the EU. And as I said on the morning of the vote, when it was announced, this is just the start. Because the political class is not going to go easily. It doesn't want to come out of the EU. The idea is more and more countries are sucked into the centralised control, not that people actually escape from it. And so the usual suspects were on the case. The Tony Blairs. Every time he opens his mouth, the hidden hand is speaking. And the John Majors, bracket, ditto. And that noise, by the way, it's a computer. I should have turned it off. It just goes like that every now and again. And now we have the man of the people, Jeremy Corbyn, standing on that same ground, not representing the wishes of the urban working class in terms of Brexit, but representing the wishes of the Blairites and the bosses and the bureaucrats. It's a fantastic example of the fact that the political class takes many, many guises, and often those that claim vehemently not to be part of it. You look at the history of the modern Labour Party and its prime ministers, Harold Wilson, James Callaghan, Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, representatives of the people, that's all that. Representatives of the system. Blair being the most blatant example, but it's the same with all of them. And so we have to go to the next step of Streetwise, I would suggest. And that's not just to realise that there is a political class which permeates all parties, but that these people that claim to come up and challenge it are actually either part of it knowingly or often just controlled by it and puppets of it. It's easy to speak words. It's not easy to take action, the actions that are necessary. I'll give you an example regarding Jeremy Corbyn. He's talking about now that if he comes to power as Prime Minister of Britain, he'll take on the banks, he'll take on the financial system. No, he won't. The financial system and the banks get their power. Their entire power base is founded on being allowed to lend people money that doesn't exist, credit, and charging interest on it. And if they don't get paid back through often economic circumstances beyond the control of the borrower, if they don't get paid back their principal and their interest on their non-existent fresh air money called credit, then they get to take that person's house, their land, their resources, their business. That's the basis on which the banking power is able to control human society and control human choice. When was the last time you heard Jeremy Corbyn mention that? Or any of this political class? Or his shadow chancellor, MacDonald? It's a hoax. It's all words, it's all wind. And I say to people who are being pulled in by this Corbyn phenomena, don't fall for it. The political system is a trap to keep you thinking it will change anything when it's there to stop any change for the benefit of people. Now, behind the Corbyn phenomena is an organisation called Momentum. Momentum is a grassroots organisation. No, it's not. It's the expression of limited companies, which seem to change their name quite often. And the person behind it, or the people behind it, are two Jewish men. One called John Landsman, and the other one, James Schneider. And neither of them see these other men of the people come from working class backgrounds, anything but. Landsman is a very rich man. And Schneider, he grew up in a £7 million mansion, apparently. But, oh no, they're men of the people. Yeah, okay. Let's have a look at this. Momentum was created in 2015 by Landsman and Schneider to basically get Corbyn elected to lead the country. And here's a background article about Landsman. Headline: How a former public schoolboy, because they all go to private schools, these people, men of the people. How a former public schoolboy is hijacking Labour. John Landsman founded Corbyn's Momentum. It's not Corbyn's Momentum, he's the puppet of Momentum, which rails against the rich, that lives in a luxury building, and his family run a property firm with links to a tax haven. Sited in a prime spot on London's South Bank, with sweeping views of Tower Bridge, the famous Le Pont de la Tour restaurant downstairs, and a 24-hour concierge to service high-powered residents, Butler's Wharf is one of Britain's most exclusive apartment blocks. The Thames side landmark, where a 4-bed penthouse is on sale for £6.25 million, was converted from a warehouse into high-end flats in the 80s and has provided a pied-à-terre to assorted city bankers, top lawyers and plutocrats ever since. I am actually leading, you may be shocked by now, but I am actually leading to Momentum. You know, this organisation, Grassroots Labour, fighting for the people. I am actually leading there. Okay. Strangely, you bet, this symbol of unfettered turbo capitalism, where homeowners pay around £4,000 a year in service charges, has for the past 2 years been the official home of a far-left organisation dedicated to the destruction of such conspicuous wealth. Yeah, of course it is. Well, it's a grassroots organisation, it must be. The privately wealthy 60-year-old Landsman filed paperwork setting up the group where he lived at Butler's Wharf. Yes, man of the people Landsman lives here. For according to Companies House, a spectacular first-floor flat at Butler's Wharf is headquarters to the notorious pro-Corbyn pressure group Momentum. How ironic. In one of those bizarre ironies you probably couldn't make up. Follow this story back into history. You don't have to. Whose 30,000 members, Momentum members, style themselves as a sort of neo-Marxist Praetorian Guard of Labour activists, has the exclusive yuppie property as its registered address. The reason for this awkward fact is one John Landsman, a veteran political organiser and a fixture on the hard left of the party for 4 decades, who founded Momentum in support of his chum, Jeremy Corbyn's bid for the leadership in the summer of 2015. Like champagne socialists of the old school, the privately wealthy 60-year-old decided to file paperwork setting up the group from where he lived, a state-of-the-art bolt hole at Butler's Wharf. So it goes that Momentum, whose offices are a mile away in a grotty bit of Aldgate, well, that's the street cred bit, you see. Oh, it's a grassroots organisation. Remains formally registered to an extraordinarily opulent property, which, according to the estate agent's particulars, boasts, among other things, extra-wide oak floorboards, remote control, dimmable lighting, exposed all that stuff. Quite how the group, whose army of sometimes very abusive activists have played a crucial role in Corbyn's electoral success, squares this fact with its endless tub-thumping on such topics as wealth inequality and the housing crisis is anyone's guess, but the article says it doesn't seem to have done Landsman, who is Momentum chairman, much harm. Well, of course it hasn't, because these people front up these representation of the people operations, and unfortunately so many of those people believe them. And here's an ironic quote, to say the least. Momentum claims to be a fundamental way for this. It claims to be a fundamental challenge to the old and corrupt ruling elite. Yeah, sure it is. How do you know so much about the old and corrupt ruling elite? Well, we are the old and corrupt ruling elite. Okay. The other thing, it was inspired apparently, or partly inspired, by the Syriza party in Greece, headed of course by this guy, Alexis Tsipras, which is kind of appropriate that was an inspiration for Momentum, because of course Tsipras and this left-wing representatives of the People Party in Greece sold the Greek people out, not least the Greek working class, down the bloody river in relation to the European Union, which now owns the country lock, stock and bloody barrel. Well, that part of the country that hasn't been sold off for cents on the dollar to corporations as a result of the economic catastrophe created by, to a very large extent, the European Union and the European Central Bank. Now, in the davidicke.com version of this videocast, underneath I've put another video by a British researcher called Mark Windows, who has looked into the background and connections of Momentum and these limited companies, and it's well worth listening to. Something else has happened too since Momentum emerged and started to impact on the Labour Party in the way that it has. Fundamentally, it controls the leader, for goodness sake, is that there has been a witch hunt against Labour Party members who question Israel and question the official stories put out by Israel and question the influence of Israel. Suddenly there's this witch hunt against them. This week, Ken Livingstone, a former mayor of London and Labour member of Parliament, has been indefinitely suspended by the Labour Party over comments he made which are claimed to be anti-Semitic. He was just giving another version of history, which he's entitled to. It's called freedom. But no, not in the stand for democracy, stand for freedom, stand for the working class. Corbyn, Momentum, Labour Party. And so, going back to the Gimme vote, going back to the fact that political choice is a hoax and an illusion, who do the urban working class vote for at elections? The Corbyn wing of the Labour Party, who are now diluting the Brexit referendum, which was massively supported by the urban working class. Or maybe they could vote for the Blairite wing of the Labour Party, still controlled by the former Prime Minister, who created catastrophe in the Middle East by lying about weapons of mass destruction with his mate Bush, and now campaigns vehemently to destroy the Brexit referendum by stopping Brexit happening. Or they could vote for a Conservative Party that represents the interests of big business corporations and the rich. That's the choice now that the urban working class of Britain is being offered. It's a hoax. And if you fall for the Corbyn illusion, then what's going to happen is you're going to lose more time buying the hoax before you realise that actually it was a frickin' hoax. And there's another major part of this, and it all connects into what I've said this far. The political left, which I remember as a kid growing up on a council house estate in Leicester, has been hijacked and taken over. You know, the political left represented by the urban working class, we keep coming back to that, has been hijacked, taken over, and increasingly eaten whole by a mentality called progressive. This is ludicrously associated with being liberal, when liberal is the last thing it is. The same has happened in the United States with the Democratic Party. The progressive mentality has taken over. This is the mentality that drives political correctness, which is nothing more than a ruse by the 1%, which the progressive is supposed to challenge, a ruse by the 1% to get the target population to silence itself. So they're the ones that are now saying increasingly, you can't say this, you can't do that, you can't have this opinion. Well, I can, actually, by the way. And it's taken over the left. And increasingly, this is the focus of the Corbyn Labour Party. It's about destroying that very foundation of freedom of speech. So it's gone down the political correctness and all the classic nonsense that you hear. In fact, this week, this story appeared in the media. L'Oreal's first transgender model, who was sacked by the cosmetics giant after claiming all white people are racist, has been enlisted as an equalities advisor. This is a joke, right? It's not. There's no one there, by the way. Couldn't get anyone else in this room. Has been enlisted as an equalities advisor. I'm sorry, but yeah, I mean, it's so ludicrous, it's funny. By the Labour Party. Monroe Bergdorf, 29, was dropped by the cosmetics giant after she branded all white people racist. Oh, lots of balance there then. And she sparked fresh controversy in December when she repeatedly used the N-word during an appearance on Good Morning Britain in December. But it has emerged that she has got a new role advising Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party on LGBT issues. I'm sure she'd be very balanced on that, you know. Are white people allowed to be GBT? I mean, how does that fit in? I'm not sure. It's very confusing, isn't it? Anyway, the role will see her work with Labour's shadow Secretary of State, Dawn Butler, any relation to Butler's Wharf, on equality issues, which kind of fits the whole thing. That's the focus now of the Labour Party, not the urban working class, especially the white urban working class. And that's not racist, a fact. So you have the progressive mentality now taking over the left in politics, that's behind organisations like Antifa that use violence against anyone that is challenging the system or having an opinion that's different to what these people say you should have. And Antifa is just a proxy army for the 1%, ironically, to divide and rule and impose its will on the population, not least censorship of freedom of speech. And of course, if you challenge this, you're a bigot, you're a racist, you're a Nazi. Talking of which, another story running this week is how the deputy leader of Corbyn's Labour Party, Tom Watson, has taken more than £500,000 in donations to his, quote, office from a guy called Max Mosley, who is the son of a notorious British fascist, Oswald Mosley. Max Mosley, also a tycoon in Formula One motor racing for a long time. And Watson and Mosley have two major things in common, or one major thing in common between them. Probably more. And that is, they want severe, draconian censorship on the media and newspapers. Now, newspapers have abused me for 30 years. I should be right behind this pair, saying, yeah, censor the press. It's the last thing I want. Because to me, freedom for people to have an opinion, to speak their own truth, is far more important, fundamentally more important, than whether I get some abuse from these idiots. Because once you start going down the road, which Watson and Mosley want, Watson, the deputy leader of the Labour Party, once you start going down that road of saying, we are going to decide what you can say and what you can't say, you're giving the power to an authority to decide what people can and cannot hear and read, and what they can and cannot know. And this all fits with this progressive takeover of the left, because they are on the front line. They are the stormtroopers of the destruction of freedom of speech, without which there is no freedom. So I say to those that support this Momentum organisation, that support Jeremy Corbyn, and support them from a genuine point of view that they want to bring about justice and fairness in society. I'm all for that. But the hoax of people standing for that but then not following it through has gone on generation after generation after generation. Please don't fall for it again. Because if the current Labour Party came to power, that's the end of freedom of speech. It's the end, from where I'm sitting, of political sanity. And all the things that you would want to happen, I would want to happen, fairness, justice in society, all based on freedom and freedom of speech, by the way, are not going to happen. It's all wind. Because here we have a politician in Jeremy Corbyn who throughout his political career has been vehemently anti-EU with his mouth. And now he gets the chance to follow it through. And what does he do? Goes with the political class. It's a hoax. Please don't fall for it.